Hello, everybody. It's good to have all of you back. Sorry we couldn't do the show yesterday. I was busy with some stuff. But we are back today to touch on some topics, sports and politics related as always. You know what the deal is. So let's get right into it. 3 weeks ago, there's this indictment, right? This big deal, the one of the biggest days in American history, when 13 Russians were indicted trying to interfere with our election. We knew about this for 2 years now. Actually, it started in 2014. You don't think the President of the United States knew about this? President Obama didn't know about this when it started in 2014. This isn't some big day in American history. Now, obviously, this is old news. I haven't touched on it, but it's important news, and it's the type of thing that that you try to extrapolate something out of it that simply doesn't exist. Now, I'll explain further why I think that you should let the investigation go. I personally don't think there's anything to this. Right, there have been senior FBI officials that have said, that are rumored to have said, this is just for show, this is nothing, and that this is just a Democrat paid operation all the way to the midterms. I would like to think that's not true. If it is, our political institutions have been burned down, not from outside forces, but from the inside out. So essentially, the indictments said this. There were 13 Russians who came to the United States, made up U.S. aliases, right? Led many events, social media campaigns, right, to sow discord in the trust that the citizens have in our country. What I mean by that is the attacks, if you want to call them that, from Russian operatives were not solely against Hillary Clinton. They were just to sow some type of discord into the fabric, right, of our system, of the way we think. That's why after President Trump was inaugurated, I think this was after the inauguration, one of those Russian operatives actually led a anti-Trump rally simply to show discord. And I think, one of the very interesting parts of this is that none of the language of that indictment specifically says that Trump people that interacted with these Russians did so unwillingly. And this is why this case, this collusion case, I don't think it's going to stand unless people in the Trump campaign were extremely stupid. Like, how can you prove someone colluded with someone else? You can walk into any courtroom and say, circumstantial evidence, reasonable doubt, I'm free. Right? Unless there is tape explicitly showing that the President of the United States, and here's why I say the President, because people in the campaign, like Manafort was involved with Republican campaigns since 1982. He was involved with the Russians for a while as well. This isn't just a Trump issue. Manafort was a political operative in the United States who at the same time worked with Russia. We didn't know about this until last year when the stuff about Ukraine came up during the campaign. And then Manafort was promptly let go of by the president. See, unless there is something in writing, something said, and even an email and writing, a lawyer can attempt to misconstrue that to a judge. Unless stuff is said with full context showing evidence of collusion with Russian operatives, this case is going to fall flat. And second thing, so apparently in the new developments today, the Mueller group, the Justice Department, is going after or looking at the president's business records in regards to Russia. Now, wait, again, this is what I have to say to you. The President of the United States, okay, unless there is tape of a Russian operative telling him to run for president and do certain things a certain way, reasonable doubt can be used in a case and everyone will walk free. Again, in this personal case, Trump business ventures, they're not called that, I'm just going to call them ventures, right? The Trump business is a global brand. I mean, Don Jr. was just in India going to 10 places a week there to sell hotels and things like that. So it shows you how much of a global brand they are. So if anyone from the Trump brand got in contact with the Russians, that's not an indictment on the president. That could be an indictment on a couple of bad apples within the business. Within the business. 2, even if it's proven that he did illegally operate with the Russians in terms of business dealings well before his run for president and his presidency, guess who decides whether he goes to court or not? The Senate and the House. If it stays the way it is, there's a good possibility the President of the United States walks scot-free, having committed business crimes. Now, I know that's a horrible thing, but is it really? Because the point of the Russian collusion scandal was to find out who sowed discord and how. You are playing into their hands by having any type of impeachment trial. You are playing into their hands. The best way to effectively stop this is to let the government continue to run. Because honestly, the President of the United States does not have that much power to effectively bring Russian influence into our government. I mean, what are you gonna bring influence in terms of like Russia and the United States? The issues between Russia and the United States focus mainly on foreign policy. Trade you can say, but I consider that foreign policy. We'll get to trade later, but there's nothing that he can do. There's nothing the president can do that will give Russia an advantage so big and so large that you can use that as some type of evidence against him in some type of court hearing. Again, the issues with Russia involve Syrian ceasefires and the war in Syria, which, by the way, the United States and Russia have not been on good terms in that part of the world, at least, lately. Number 2, nuclear weapons. The U.S. is not going to eliminate all their nuclear weapons. This is mutually assured destruction. And then 3, the Ukraine, invasion of the Ukraine, and I guess this is a 4th one. Sanctions involving all of these things. So, what are we saying here? Because the president eased on sanctions, he is colluding with the Russian government. The President of the United States in 2012 was on tape, okay, promising that Russian sanctions would be reduced after the election. He was on tape doing that. They were both candidates. He had just happened to win before. Why is that legal and why is this not legal? Okay, so if that's your big indictment on the president, there's been examples of this before with the Russians, with opposition administrations. I don't think the case against Trump's businesses will hold up, because you can claim circumstantial evidence. I don't think the claims with collusion will hold up, because one, there's no crime against collusion. You can say that, whatever. Collusion in any way is so difficult to prove, because you can misconstrue written statements. You can misconstrue emails in a way that can get you out of a case, because writing doesn't provide an entire context. Usually it doesn't. The only way someone gets caught in this is if things were said with full context involved to Russian operatives, and it is clear by that full context that they were working with the president's campaign. Now, if this happened, it would be the right thing, it would be the justified thing to go through a trial and an impeachment hearing and a Senate hearing. I don't think it would be very good for the country. I think Russia would win if the FBI decided to lead a charge to impeach the president. But again, collusion is so hard to prove because it has to be right there. And the presidential campaign probably was not that dumb to put it all out there for law enforcement to see. And anyway, I don't think this happened. I actually am buying into more of the big Democrat conspiracy against the Democrats. That's going to be very interesting. I'll get to that at some point. Not today, probably not this week. Probably won't get to that unless something major happens, right? If it's clear that Hillary Clinton paid for the dossier, it's clear that the dossier was fake, then we can talk about it. Because that means the investigation, the special counsel, the money spent was all useless. It was based on a lie. If that happens, that is the biggest story in American politics, American political history. The Trump issue, even if he gets impeached, do I think it is really a big deal? No. Why? Because this was going to happen sooner or later. What I mean by that is the status quo had sucked the emotions out of everyone, positive emotions out of everyone. Some type of backlash was going to come. And this is your example of it. This is your example of people wanting to go extreme because they don't trust the status quo. This would have happened whether or not the Russians supported it or any government supported it. This would have happened in due time. And there is nothing like the President of the United States cannot do anything outside of foreign policy. And even in foreign policy, it's a lot of talking with no actual, it's a lot of high stakes, but in reality the stakes aren't so high because no one wants to do anything. Right? No one wants to launch nuclear weapons at each other. No one wants to start all-out war. So it's not a much ado about nothing, but if the nothing turns into something, then the consequences are large. So on a foreign policy standpoint, while you can favor certain countries, that doesn't really have any major negative implications towards your country's general standing on the world stage, diplomatically, to other foreign powers. And usually foreign powers don't have much impact on your domestic policy anyway. So honestly, if there are state-sponsored candidates for President of the United States, what is the effect, really? Because people are not going to elect radicals who have insane ideas where it's clear that their intentions are anti-American. That's just not going to happen. So we need to be realistic about the impact that this is going to have on our electoral. Well, the impact on electoral processes obviously is major. But the impact on government in general, well-being of the United States people, foundation of government, not as much of a major impact as if the FISA memo that the Republicans sent out is all validated. And I'm not saying this partisan-wise. I just gave you a list of reasons as to why this really won't affect us, even if the president is implicated, which it's highly unlikely he will in any scenario, because reasonable doubt plays a role in American law, and you can use that for your benefit to get you out of situations. O.J. Simpson, 1994. Everyone knows he's guilty. The law doesn't. So, it's not good for a president to be criminalized. I never want that. But again, the limits of power that the president has are actually so astounding, right? Like, you can executive action so many things, and there have been abuses of that power. But in general, in terms of general policies that Americans care about, like the average American, collusion with a foreign entity probably won't affect anything unless that foreign entity is like some radical regime from Iran or Iraq or DPRK. And I'm not supporting this. I really think this is a big deal from my perspective, simply because of the sacredness of our electoral process. But if you want to look at it outside of that, from a real world, quote unquote, perspective, not much is going to change in a negative way. Not much has, right? And not much will. So, that's just my take on it. We're making a big deal out of something that really isn't what it's cut out to be. We're being flowed by a media narrative that is astoundingly partial and sensational. But if the president is guilty, he should be punished accordingly. But even if he is, he won't be. I don't think he will. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Alright, coming up next on the Ashish Narayan Sports and Political Podcast, I discussed something I've been doing some research on. And the NFL Scouting Combine coming up 2 days from now, this Friday. What to look for, and who will or will not, who will or will not be throwing at the draft combine. This is the Ashish Narayan Sports and Political Podcast, coming from you live, here we go live.